Fishermen are by nature fairly independent, so the fact that they gathered in such numbers today indicates how seriously they view the ongoing closures. Speakers from dozens of cooperatives along the length of the coast repeated the feeling among fishermen that the government's closure of traditional fishing grounds is not only threatening their livelihood, but is based on inadequate research. But even the fishermen themselves can't agree on how much pressure commercial fishing has placed on estuarine stocks. Some say there isn't a problem.
Fish stocks are just as thick now as what they were. Well, I've been fishing 38 years and they're every bit as thick.
Others admit there is a problem, but see the pressure coming from recreational fishermen now taking to the waterways in ever-increasing numbers.
And the amount of fish that have been caught by the amateurs, if you go and have a look at some of the amateurs clubs, are absolutely massive by their numbers with the amount of people that are catching them. Probably as much as we catch. And we get the blame for all the black market. They don't get.
They all agree that the government hasn't done enough research to warrant the closures and certainly hasn't consulted with enough professional fishermen. Director with the Minister for Agriculture's office, Dr. Julian Amos, admits that more research is needed, but he says closure of fishing grounds is justified.
Our concern is to ensure that the proper system is brought into place prior to any damage being done, not after damage, but not after the damage is done. And so therefore we're doing it the right way around.
The fishermen have agreed to send a deputation to the Minister representing not just fishing cooperatives but associated suppliers and retailers to demand a greater say in the future of their industry. The Salvation Army is seen by most as the group that moves in to pick up society's victims after all else has failed. But now they're taking a more active role in social prevention. Thanks to generous donations and voluntary labour, the Newcastle Special Service Corps is moving into its new Salvation Outreach Service Centre. Some things never change, the brass band and hymns just as important as ever, and of course the tambourines. But this centre represents a new, more aggressive role for the Salvos. Inside, a reception and recreation area, administration centre, chapel and counselling rooms. Volunteers will man a 24-hour telephone counselling service called Careline, while another 24-hour emergency line will make the Salvation Army an integral part of emergency services throughout the district. Commanding Officer Stan Hindle says the service, based on a Sydney model, is a first for Newcastle.
Well, it's probably to coordinate its work in a more targeted way of becoming responsive right to the basic need of the people and coming through a centre where we can channel anyone into any of the avenues of assistance in so much time we can give it as well as what we can give them here.
Do you need it more than ever before?
Oh, certainly. The demands of a community today demands that we get down to do something as grassroots.
The day kicked off with the second round of the Pacific Dreams Peters Pro Junior. This event has attracted professional and amateur surfers who are all 19 years and under. When the event got underway yesterday, there were 128 starters, with an extra 8 seeded surfers who won't begin competing until tomorrow. Competitors have come from all over Australia and some from overseas, with California, Hawaii and Tahiti being represented. Perhaps the only real surprise of the day in this event was Sean Munro being knocked out in only the second round. Munro was expected to go much further, having recently won a major Triple J event at Manly. By the end of the day, the field was reduced to 32. A number of Newcastle competitors have made it through to the next heat. These include 18-year-old Justin Lee, 17-year-old David MacArthur, 18-year-old Marcus Conway and 17-year-old Jamie Lambert. At 1 p.m, the Newcastle Longboard Classic got underway. Numbers have been down this year because of a clash with another longboard event, the Stubbies, being surfed up in Queensland. Nevertheless, competition has been fierce, with a number of Newcastle entrants making it through to the next round. These include Mick Burns, Martin McMillan, Steve Butterworth, Bill Reid, Richard Smith and David Campbell. Surffest will continue tomorrow with round 4 of the Pro Junior and round 3 of the Longboards. Peter Rose was a well-known Novocastrian pole vaulter and coach who died in July this year of a heart attack. Perhaps one of his most astounding attributes was that he continued to compete as a pole vaulter right up until his death at the age of 56. Fellow athletes say he was a medal prospect for the World Veteran Championships. Today, Newcastle athletes decided to honour him by staging the Peter Rose Memorial Carnival. More than 150 athletes took part in a variety of track and field events. There were a number of feature events, including a trip back in time with the staging of the 100-yard run. The men's was won in a fast time of 9.68 seconds by Matthew Williams. Former Olympian Linda Garden showed top form by recording a jump of 5.92 metres in the long jump. She came from Sydney to compete. Another feature event was the pole vaulting. This was won by Sydney athlete Jeff Jones, who recorded a jump of 4.15 metres.
The fire started in the dining room and had spread into the roof by the time brigades from Cardiff, Charlestown and Bullaroo got to work. The four-bedroom Federation-era dwelling once was home to the late famous Dr. Lowe, and for the past 8 years has belonged to Mr. Stace. 3 years ago, he had the house completely rewired, but it still thought an electrical fault started the blaze, which gutted the dining room. While firemen managed to stop the flames reaching the bedrooms, enough heat was generated to melt French polishing on antique bedroom furniture and timber structural fittings. An insurance assessor inspected the damage today, estimates of which range as high as $50,000. Around 10:30 this morning, police have been told, a small-built man went into the Advanced Bank in the Mayfield Plaza in Valencia Street. The man, in his 20s, told staff he had a gun, although none was sighted. Even so, a teller handed over what's been described as a small amount of money. The offender then left on foot, and despite a wide search, no sign of him has been found. It's not known if he had a vehicle waiting. A sketchy description issued was that he was unshaven and wearing a grey tank top. Detectives spent the afternoon interviewing the bank's staff after what is the third hold-up in a fortnight.
Hello, I'm Jane Button. Tonight I'll be reporting on union reaction to the announcement by Premier Barry Unsworth that the rescue package for the coal industry will amount to $40 million. Unions had been hoping for much more and say that some of the strings attached will cost jobs.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
"27 regional high schools are represented at this year's exhibition. More than 500 individual items are on display, all constructed by school children doing the Textiles and Designs course. All will count towards their yearly assessment. Regional Director of Education Alan Beard officially opened the display today. Articles on show include embroidery, patchwork, quilting, spinning, weaving, knitting and cottage craft. A highlight is this bicentennial banner, a group effort by students from Mount View High near Cessnock. The exhibition will run all this week.
Premier Barry Unsworth casually let it slip yesterday that he had stitched up a deal with Federal Treasurer Paul Keating for the coal industry.
Only on Friday of last week, I was in Canberra at the EPAC meeting. I talked to Paul Keating and we finally stitched up the deal.
But the deal is nowhere near the $100 million that Mr Unsworth originally sought from Prime Minister Hawke. It also appears that the federal government has backed down from its recent decision to provide $20 million on the condition that the state government provide $40 million of its own funds.
We have agreed that there will be a $40 million rescue package funded on a dollar-for-dollar basis, $20 million for the Commonwealth, $20 million for New South Wales. The money will go to those mines that are producing efficiently, and also those mines that will be able to assist us to transport the coal efficiently.
Today, mining unions reacted with disappointment, saying $40 million is not enough and has been too slow in coming. And it's the strings attached that have the unions particularly worried. They are most concerned that only those mines that the government sees as economically viable will get assistance, and say more jobs will go.
But I think it's insignificant with regard to the needs of the state as a coal mining operation, of a salvage operation for the coal industry anyway. And certainly I've got reservations about the manner in which it'll be identified and the areas that will be identified against those that won't. Now, there's a number of mines within the Hunter Valley that have difficult mining operations that do need genuine relief because they're competing in the marketplace along with the more advantaged mines. Now, it's our position as unions that we consider that we're in the game of salvaging employment. Now, I don't see this package doing anything to relieve that situation.
Mr Hayes says the decision also discriminates against mines that cart coal by road, such as 3 coal and allied mines, the Wallsend Borehold, Stockrington and West Wallsend. He says other mines that are also unlikely to benefit are the Bayswater Colliery, Leamington and Saxonvale in the Upper Hunter.
It's mainly the retrenchment of one man that has brought the huge steel-making plant to a standstill. Reports say the day work medical officer, Harry Davis, was given only 20 minutes notice of his retrenchment. Over 30 other staff members were apparently notified only an hour before. Union officials are due to hold talks with senior company management on Wednesday morning. However, they say their members are concerned that the retrenchment of Mr Davis and other medical staff will mean a lessening of care and attention to the workers. The men will return to work at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to allow the talks to take place. General Manager of Comsteel, Mr Ainsworth, was unavailable for comment.
After the sacking of Newcastle City Council in 1984, the running of the city was left in the hands of an administrator until the new council was elected late last year. Not only were there changes of aldermen, but the internal structure of the city's administration underwent a radical transformation. 5 divisional chiefs were appointed to head 5 new departments, which included administrative services, engineering and construction, health, welfare and building services, the planning division and community services. Each department answers to the town clerk and then to the mayor. According to Alderman Ashley Saunders, recent staffing problems and low morale are a direct result of these changes. He says the problem has worsened because recommendations to council on most matters are formulated by a committee of council directors and the town clerk. And then there's the introduction of the procedure manual.
The manual talks about the relationship between council officers and elected aldermen, and suggests that aldermen should contact no one below the level of director, because there could be then a conflict in duty, and also there could be a feeling of a favour being done which needs to be returned sometime.
Alderman Saunders says he would like to see the corporate structure abandoned, allowing aldermen to have more say.
I would like to see that we return to a system of having committees of aldermen being responsible for putting up recommendations to council, and therefore having earlier input into recommendations, into decisions and into framing of policy.
The
The touring Australian specialists say they learnt a great deal from their visit. In China, they shared allergy research and treatment knowledge with their Chinese counterparts and visited laboratories and reference libraries. The Australian team was also introduced to a herbal medicine called the Wen Yang pill, which contains 6 herbs and is used to treat asthmatics. Some doctors were also treated with a watermelon mist for mouth ulcers. Newcastle doctor Alan Cripps took part in the tour.
Well, they have a more basic approach than we do. Rather than using high technology, to this point in time, they've been able to use a lower technology, more basic sciences, which I think has a lot of advantages. They can grow up, for example, house dust mite by the kilograms to prepare allergen extracts from.
He says allergen extracts are used in tests to see what people are allergic to, and in some cases to desensitise people with allergies. He says culture conditions aren't developed to the same extent in Australia to develop mites in such large quantities, and there are variations between Australian and Chinese allergy treatments.
They use desensitisation or hypersensitisation to a far greater extent on asthmatics than we do, with very good success. I suspect one of the reasons for that is that they're using less pure allergen preparations. There's been reported in this country and in the UK a couple of deaths from desensitising asthmatics. And I think that probably relates to the purity of the allergen preparation that we're using. They obviously have less problems with less pure products.
Good afternoon, I'm Belinda Borissow. A search has been underway at Great Palm Island off the Townsville coast today for the pilot of an FA-18 which crashed there last night. The pilot and the $30 million aircraft are from the Williamtown RAAF base. We'll bring you a full report on that tonight.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
Good afternoon, I'm Helen Hughes. This is the site of a new $3 million high-tech winery at Pecolbin. It's the property of Wyndham Estate, a company which today announced it expects to make a record $6 million in overseas sales this year.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
"23-year-old Richard Jeffries joined the Air Force in 1983. He was on a night bombing training mission last night when his $30 million FA-18 Hornet crashed into mountainous rainforest at Great Palm Island, 59 kilometres northwest of Townsville. This morning, as the search continued for the missing young flying officer, Wing Commander John Irwin spoke of Richard Jeffries' experience.
The pilot is an experienced fighter pilot with Mirages and is undergoing the current conversion course onto Hornets, which started in July of this year and was due to finish in December.
Wing Commander Irwin says the wreckage of the FA-18 was widespread and was first spotted by an Iroquois helicopter. Further examination of the wreckage revealed Flying Officer Jeffries didn't eject and was killed on impact. Wing Commander Irwin says the loss of the pilot and the FA-18 is a sad day for Australia. The fighter attackers came into service 2.5 years ago, and there are only 32 of them in use in the country, all of them based at Williamtown. He doesn't know how the accident happened.
At this stage we have no idea. It'll be subject of a board of inquiry who will certainly leave no stone unturned as to find out why.
Mr Farrens called a news conference this afternoon to point out that while industrial relations aren't the threat here, there are many other problems. In the latest edition of the Works journal Rodbar, Mr Farrens does some plain talking, saying Newcastle cannot continue to lose money. The plant must produce more at a higher quality and more efficiently, or it will not survive.
In some ways, we have an even tougher job than Port Kembla because we're up against mini mills. We therefore have to be, if anything, more efficient, more productive than Port Kembla because we're relying on producing quality steels and getting into the export market where there's a very heavy demand for reliability, good quality, absolute dependability.
The Ironworkers Association has expressed fears that this could become a mini mill with consequent savage job losses. Is that what you are suggesting?
We're all committed here to the continuation of Newcastle as an integrated steelworks, but it's got very tough competitors. It's in a very different business to Port Kembla's business, and we've just got to be better than most others if we're going to survive.
And the crux of that survival seems to be the new $110 million continuous bloom caster, which has been suffering teething problems of disastrous proportions. A recent spillage caused a fire which kept it down for 3 weeks.
Fundamentally, it's a very sound piece of equipment. And it is fundamental also that we make it work because Newcastle Steelworks will not survive if that caster doesn't work.
Three Aborigines from the Corrective Centre contributed to the art exhibition. Their works include ornate Aboriginal artefacts made from wood straight from the bush. Their paintings are on paper and cardboard, using acrylics and traditional ochres. The Cessnock TAFE College has been running art courses for Aborigines at the Corrective Centre since April. Teacher Beverly Spears says, at first many believe they can't paint, but with encouragement their progress is obvious. She says the art course can help to give the men a secure future.
Most people that go to TAFE, that go out after a job, they can walk into you and say, I've been at TAFE for the last few years. My boys are branded Crims and they're black. So there's not much chance of them getting a job. But what I'm doing and TAFE is doing is giving them the capacity to be self-employed out there when they go out, you see. Most of them don't even want to, in the beginning, sign their name because they believe they're nothing. They've been so used to that. But after the first exhibition we had a couple of months ago, and we sold about $400 worth of their paintings, it was such a shot in the arm. They've been doing nothing but sitting in their cell, painting, painting, painting.
It's just a crack in the ground caused by subsidence, but it's divided the residents of Merewether Heights and the Waterboard. The residents staged a public protest this morning over plans to fill in the rift. The Waterboard say the fissure is dangerous, and at least on that score the residents agree. But it's how they're going about filling the crevice that has the neighbours offside. They say the use of heavy earth-moving equipment is simply overkill.
Well, if they took this vehicle in, for instance, there would be more damage than is necessary. It's not necessary to take a machine of this size into the area to fill a crevice. And so we are requesting the Water Board and the Mine Subsidence Board to assure us that there will be a small machine used and not this machine.
The Merewether Coastal Protection Group will meet on Monday night to plan further protests to the Water Board and to the state government.